All right, so my name is Ceera Horton. I am a licensed broker associate with Real Broker LLC, and I'm here with grantl of CMG Home Loans. And we're here to talk to you about an opportunity that may help jumpstart your opportunity into home ownership. It's called Hometown Heroes. And if you are a mental health care worker, healthcare professional, K through 12 staff employee, public safety employee, service member, whether that's active duty or veteran, a childcare worker, you could qualify for up to 5% of your loan amount toward your closing and or down payment. That's right. So you all have been servicing us as childcare workers, phlebotomists, doctors, physicians, librarians, teachers' aides, guidance counselors, cafeteria workers, EMTs, firefighters, court reporters, nurses, CNAs, the list just goes, dental assistants, the list just goes on and on. And like I said, you could receive up to 5% of your loan amount towards your closing and or down payment cost. The maximum that you would receive if you qualify for this loan would be $35,000, and at minimum, you could receive $10,000. And yes, there are some caveats. So the interest rate is going to be a little bit higher than the national average, and it is a deferred loan at 0% interest where you would have to pay that money back. But what if you were able to use this loan program option on top of a local county or city down payment option and potentially get seller concessions if your real estate agent was able to negotiate those up to 6%? And that could depend on the loan amount that you're using. So if you're using FHA or USDA, then you can apply up to that 6%. So like I said, this program on top of another down payment assistance option, plus those seller concessions, that's money that you could potentially save out of your pocket and then apply it toward that monthly mortgage that may be slightly higher due to that interest rate. What if you had money left over? That money, while you would not be able to get it back unless it was funds that were gifted from a family member and the loan officer documented it, then they could get their money back. But as for you, you wouldn't get your interest money back, your earnest money back, or any additional funds that were left over. But those funds would remain in the transaction, and your lender could then apply it to your mortgage, paying down that mortgage a little bit more, making it more affordable for you. Now, I want to focus on two groups of people that this loan might be the best fit for. In addition, it'll help you understand who needs to pay that money back and when. So the first group of people that I want to focus on are those that are maybe looking for their forever home. So if you're going to be in the home for 30 years and the loan matures, then you'll have to pay that money back at that point. And if you're somebody that's like, oh, I don't want that over my head, I don't want to wait that long to pay the money back, I want to pay it back immediately, then you can start paying it back in monthly payments. And let's say you were able to get up to the $35,000 and we divided that by 360 months, then that would be 97 additional dollars on top of the mortgage that you're already paying. So if you look at that in the grand scheme of things, that may not be that bad. The other group of people that I want to talk to are those that would have to pay the money back if a certain action occurred. So if you refinanced out of the property, if you transferred the deed, if it was no longer your primary residence because you chose to sell or rent out the property, then the money would be due immediately. It will be due back immediately if you took one of those actions. So let's say you were going to stay in the home for about 10 to 15 years. Maybe you could build up enough equity to be able to pay the money back that you owe and apply what's left over to another purchase, right? And the other piece I want to say in regards to paying the money back, whether you pay it back in your 30 years or in 10 or 15 years if you choose to resell or rent out or whatever, at the end of the day, this money is going back into the pot to help people just like you. So I hope that can encourage you if you were kind of concerned about paying back that money. Again, it's 0% interest. Um, and it's a deferred loan that you can take the time to pay back over the next couple of years. With that said, Grant and I are going to highlight some of the aspects of the program so that you're able to make an informed decision. Follow up with us with questions and actually reach out to Grant to see if you qualify for this loan. In doing your research, if you feel like this isn't the great fit, the best fit for you in regards to jumping into home ownership, Grant is licensed in 50 states, and he's also well versed in down payment assistance programs. So he can look at other alternatives for you and pair things together to create a great package for you. And if you're somebody and you're like, I don't even know where to start, I don't know my credit score, then you can work with Grant to see what your credit score is, see what you need to get it to in order to maybe get into the interest rate range that you want and how what you can do to boost that. You can also work with him to see what savings you might need to bring to the table in regards to your closing and down payment based on the pricing point that you're looking for and what you may need to do to get in that monthly affordable mortgage range that you want. So, with that said, I am going to transition to focusing on Hometown Heroes just a little bit more and ask Grant some questions. That way, we can highlight pieces of the program for you and get you that foundation you need to make an informed decision. So, my first question for you, Grant, is what are the requirements? So, the credit score, the debt to income ratio, the DTI, are there any income limits? Do they need to do a home buying program? And who might actually be eligible for this program?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that warm introduction. Really
You're so
excited to be
welcome.
here. So thank you for having me here. We'll
You're
talk about the
welcome.
requirements to qualify. First and foremost, for most people getting the Hometown Heroes program, the credit score requirement is going to be 640. So 640, excuse me, is going to be what is required to qualify based on credit. Now, when it comes to occupations, there's two different categories. If you are a veteran, you have a little bit more flexibility. You don't have to be a first-time home buyer if you're going to be using this program. And if you're active military, you're good. You're already eligible. If you are non-active, we would have to make sure that, like you mentioned, you were discharged honorably and you do have a full-time job in a brick and mortar location. And for the other category of people, the people that are considered essential workers, you're talking about school teachers, first responders, people of that sort, they are going to have to be first-time home buyers. And the exact definition of being a first-time home buyer is that you have not lived or owned in a primary residence for the last 3 years. So to give you a perfect example, if you've never owned a home in the past, congratulations to you. You are already a first-time home buyer. If maybe in the past you have owned a home, but you've been renting for quite some time, if you were renting for 3 years and you haven't owned a primary residence in that time frame, that also qualifies you to be a first-time home buyer all over again. And the other instance is if you own a property but you don't live there as your primary residence and you haven't lived there for 3 years, that also makes you eligible to be a first-time home buyer. Past that, a couple of the other requirements, there are income limits based on the specific county that you live in. I will pull up my screen right now to show you the example of the income limits that are available. Sierra, can you see my screen right now?
I cannot
Let me try that one
see.
more time.
Okay.
All right, is that better?
It looks like it's trying to download. It says that you started sharing your screen, so hopefully it's all right. Now it's showing.
Perfect. All right, so these are the guidelines for the Hometown Heroes program. And don't worry, you don't have to memorize all this stuff. That's why you have a good loan officer and a good realtor to talk to. We can find all this information out for you. So in our particular instance, I live in Hillsborough County, and the income limit is based on a couple different factors. It's going to be based on non-targeted and also targeted areas, as well as how many people are living in the household. So if we take a look at this first column, the non-targeted area for 1 to 2 people, that income limit in Hillsborough County is going to be $104,000. Now, keep in mind, this is only for the Hometown Heroes bond. There's also a different program called the Hometown Heroes TBA, and that has higher income limits. So if you go to the eHousing Plus website, in case you want to reference this for yourself, we can go ahead and pull up the guidelines and we can scroll down to the income limits in the middle of the document. When you get to this table right over here, this is going to be the income limits for the TBA program. And as you can see, previously we had the income limit of $104,000 for a non-targeted area with 1 to 2 people. And when it comes to the TPA, you can see that the income limit goes up to $156,000. Now, a lot of times when you have first responders, some of their jobs, maybe they're in the medical field, they might have higher incomes and it might make it harder for them to qualify. But don't worry, with the Hometown Heroes TBA, you're eligible to have a higher income limit based on your income alone. Now, if we take a look, common question I get is what is the non-targeted and also the targeted area? And it's really based on the census tract. So if you take a look at this list right here, if the particular home that you're looking for is inside of one of these census tracts, you are eligible to use the targeted area when it comes to the income qualification. And if we take a look at that, that jumps the income limit from $104,000 all the way to $125,000. Now, the other thing that I would like to mention for eligibility is going to be the purchase price limit. And this is also dependent on if the area is non-targeted or targeted based on the census tracts that we were looking at above. So if we take a look down here for Hillsborough County, if you are in a non-targeted area, you should be able to qualify for a maximum home purchase of $544,000. Now, if you are looking at a targeted area for the purchase price, that goes from $544,000 to about $665,000. And taking a look at the TBA loan, we can also see that the purchase price limit is the same at $500,000. But when it comes to the HFA Advantage or the VA loan limits, that goes up to the conforming loan limit of $806,000. So if you're going up to a purchase price of $800,000, you'll be able to receive that full $35,000 of down payment assistance. Something else that I would like to mention in terms of eligibility, it's going to be the targeted areas. If you are in the targeted area and you are below the area median income of 80% or less, you actually are eligible to buy a home without being a first-time home buyer. Now, the area median income is determined by how much money is made in a particular county, and then we use that percentage with our income calculation to see if we can qualify you for either a bigger loan limit or to waive that first-time home buyer requirement. Did I touch on all the points right there, Sierra?
It did. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that they must occupy the property within 60 days. And
Yep,
that, I don't know if we touched on this, you must work at a Florida brick and mortar going in there 5 days a week. Remote work does not count. Is that correct, Grant? I just wanted to
that
make
is
sure.
correct. Yeah, thank you for
Okay.
mentioning that. Yeah, a lot of
No
stuff to
worries.
remember, so that's why I
It
wanted to
is.
see
It
if you
is.
wanted to mention anything else.
No, no, no.
That's
But that's
perfect.
why, yep, that is perfect. And so, do you want to pull up the actual occupations? That way they'll have that once they view the presentation and they can look at it.
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before on the eHousing
Can
Plus
you make
website.
that a little bigger? Sorry, just
Yeah, absolutely. Is
okay,
that
there you
better?
go. Yes.
Perfect. Yep. This is on the eHousing Plus website, but if you want to reach out to one of us, we can definitely send it your way once this presentation is over. This is the full list of occupations that are eligible to receive Hometown Heroes funding. It's about 4 pages, and I'm not going to go through and read each individual occupation, but the categories I will cover. And it is going to be nursing, medical technician, medical therapists, mental health workers, doctors, physicians, and pharmacists. There are other healthcare workers that work in dental hygiene or like a phlebotomist, like you mentioned. School staff members. The full list is right over here on the right-hand side. We also have first responders, public safety workers, court employees, childcare workers, like you mentioned, and also military and veterans. So it's a
Perfect. Thank
pretty
you.
long list. Yeah, and like I said, we'll send this out. And whenever you're applying for down payment assistance, I can take a look at this list for you and let you know if you qualify based on your occupation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The next place that I want to go is what properties are eligible. So like single family, condo, those type of things.
Also, a very good question. Single family homes are eligible for financing, as well as multifamily homes from 2 to 4 units. And then, depending on which first mortgage you get, whether it's a FHA loan or if it's a conventional loan, that's going to determine your down payment. For example, if you were able to get a fourplex for an FHA loan, that would be a 3.5% down payment. And if you got a conventional loan, you would have to do 5% down to get into the quadplex. Now, the other property types that are eligible, we can also do condos. We can do mobile or manufactured homes, but keep in mind, you're going to have a slight reduction in your debt to income ratio when you're looking at mobile or manufactured homes. And another thing that I would like to mention is that across the board, 50% debt to income ratio, that is typically the maximum debt to income ratio for down payment assistance. In certain instances, we can get an exception and go a little bit higher, maybe like 50.49 at the very top end. And if you are getting a mobile or manufactured home, we would have to keep that debt to income ratio at 45% or lower. And like we mentioned before, we don't really expect all of our clients to know exactly what their debt to income ratio is. But if you get in contact with me, I can pull your credit report, take a look at your finances, and let you know exactly what that ratio is.
Perfect. The other thing I want to touch upon is that new construction homes are also an option. However, they may want to look into a spec home that's basically 90% done, and all they do is pick out maybe the flooring and the cabinets because we do have to close that loan on time. So, are you able to talk a little bit more about kind of what that it would look like to purchase a new construction home with this loan and maybe the FHA 203K as well?
Sure, definitely. When it comes to getting a new construction home, a lot of times people will put a deposit down in a home while it's still getting built. Like you mentioned, maybe 90%. Sometimes people start that process really early on where they're just looking at the piece of land and designing the spec home on their own. Now, in that instance, it could take anywhere from 6 to 12 to 18 months to complete. So in that time frame, there's a good possibility that the funds from Hometown Heroes could run out. And what I mean by that is come Monday, August 18th, the funds for Hometown Heroes are going to be released. It is a limited amount of funding that is available. In this particular round, it's going to be $50 million that become available for reservations on the Florida Housing website. Now, the reason we're talking about getting a spec home that's mostly completed is whenever you have a mortgage, you have a mortgage window that you're working in, and during that time frame, there's also a window in which you have to reserve the loan with the Florida Housing Corporation. So a lot of times, if you get into a mortgage, we can get the process started, and then during the last 30 days of the home being completed, we can go ahead and reserve the funds for Hometown Heroes. Now, the reason we want to wait to reserve the funds is because the reservation is good for 30 days. If the reservation ends up going past 30 days, then at that point, an additional fee is going to be charged to extend that rate being locked. Now, like we mentioned before, we can start the mortgage process before reserving the funds for Hometown Heroes. That way, you guys don't get charged that fee, but it's just something good to keep in mind when you're working with new construction. And I think you're
Perfect.
also asking about the 203K loan as well, right?
I was, yep.
Yep. So the 203K loan is a product in which you can get the financing to acquire the property. And say, for example, maybe you want to redo the kitchen, or maybe you want to do some additional work or repairs in the house. You can actually finance those repairs into the mortgage and combine it all in one loan. So essentially, think about getting the acquisition of the home, the loan for that, and then the renovation for the home. You get those two separate loans put together, and that is what we call the FHA 203K product.
Yes, and then from my understanding with that FHA 203K, they can't do structural repairs, but they can do minor cosmetics. So if it's going to be painting or cabinets or carpet or something like that, they can do that and it must be done within 30 days.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
so no structural repairs, just cosmetics, like you mentioned.
All right. For this particular loan. Now, with the other normal FHA 203K, you can do things like structural loans and stuff like that. So just want to be
Well, with
clear.
the, I do
Okay.
want to clarify with the 203K
Yes.
loan, in general, typically it does not cover structural repairs. That
Okay.
would be getting into a completely different product.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for that. So I want to wrap up with some tips for success, unless you have anything else that you want to highlight, Grant.
Let me check my notes real quick.
Absolutely. Yep.
I think you were talking about DPA and
I
seller
was.
concessions. You're gonna hop
Yeah.
into that? Okay, I might be getting ahead of myself, so I'll
No,
let you
no,
do your thing.
you can talk about that. Nope. Nope,
Sure,
you can go
yeah.
ahead.
When it comes to down payment assistance, you can use that in combination with something that is called a seller concession. Now, a lot of home buyers that I talk to, they don't know that seller concessions is a thing. And a seller concession is the process of a home seller giving you money at closing to buy their house. Sounds kind of crazy, right? A lot of people are like, well, why would the seller of the home want to give me money? And then you got to put yourself in the shoes of the seller. In the current market environment that we are in, it is a buyer's market. There is an influx of an oversupply of inventory on the market. And because of that, a lot of sellers are having their homes sit on the market for an extended period of time, anywhere from 60, maybe 120, and in some instances, maybe even like a whole 180 days have gone by since the property was listed. And at that point, these people, they have some type of circumstances where they need to move on with their lives. Maybe they have to like move based on like jobs, maybe downsizing, upsizing with their family, maybe some type of life event occurred, and they just got to move into a different house. And they can't move on with their life because then they have an existing mortgage payment for the house that they're leaving, and then a new mortgage payment for the house that they're buying. And having two mortgage payments is a lot. Even having one mortgage payment in this market is a lot of money, right? So because of that, people get into a situation where they need to sell their house quickly. And a lot of times, what they'll end up doing is giving a seller concession. So, for example, Sierra was mentioning if you get an FHA loan, you can get a 6% seller concession. If we do the math on that, let's say, for example, the average home price in Tampa is about $400,000. 6% of that is 24 grand. So if you're buying a house for $400,000 in a buyer's market, it could be worth your while to have your realtor try and negotiate a seller credit for that full 6%. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a client close last Friday on a home purchase. It was an FHA purchase. They bought the property for $340,000 and they were able to get $20,000 to cover their closing costs. I mean, getting $20,000 to buy a house, that's pretty incredible. I don't know where else you can just pick up $20,000 out of thin air and put it into your own pocket, right? And that does a number of things, right? If the down payment assistance covers the cost of your down payment on your home, that seller concession can cover the cost of your closing. And any other funds left over, depending on which bucket they're coming from, can be paid towards your principal balance, like Sierra was saying, because the more you reduce your principal balance on your loan amount, the cheaper your mortgage payment is going to be, and the less interest you're going to be paying over the life of the loan. So that's how seller concessions work. Depending on what type of mortgage you get, whether it's conventional, FHA, or VA, there's different limits to how much of a concession you get. And we would advise for you to consult with a lender or a realtor as to how much we can get during that negotiation process. The other thing that I would like to include that not only can you stack seller concessions, you can also use an additional down payment assistance program with Hometown Heroes. And the only caveat with using an additional down payment assistance source is you just have to make sure that whatever down payment assistance you get past Hometown Heroes is okay being in the third lien position. Now, when it comes to the lien, that means um, which mortgage is going to be attached to your home as collateral. So your home is a collateral, and the first position, it's always going to be the first mortgage, whether it's FHA, VA, or conventional. The second position lien is going to be the down payment assistance. Like we mentioned, if you get Hometown Heroes, you can get anywhere from $10,000 to $35,000, and that is what we call a silent second mortgage, meaning you can borrow this money. There's going to be 0% interest on there. There's going to be no mortgage payment made unless you want to start paying it down. And it just always stays the same until you sell or refinance your house. Or if your loan comes to maturity and you pay it off early, you will have to pay that money back. So the third position is going to be where that last down payment assistance will go. And as long as they're okay with being in the third lien position, we can go ahead and stack Hometown Heroes and the other down payment assistance that you're getting. Now, when it comes to the seller credit or maybe you get a gift, as long as it fits the criteria for the loan, you should be totally fine and don't have to worry about if it qualifies with Hometown Heroes.
Grant, thank you so much. You are so knowledgeable. And I think that's why I appreciate you, because you take time to educate the client and find the right products that work best for them. So you can see why Grant is one of my trusted and preferred mortgage professionals. And I hope you take the time to reach out to him today, whether it's to talk about Hometown Heroes or other down payment assistance options or the loan process if you're looking to jump into home ownership. The last thing I'll say in regards to Hometown Heroes is Grant was mentioning those down payment assistance programs. Make sure that you understand how long it's going to take to process those loans, because while the Hometown Heroes, it may take them 30 days to process that loan. With the city and county, it might take them a little longer, let's say 45, 50 days. So you want to make sure you have the right closing date on your contract. You also want to know if they need you to complete an additional inspection. So when you purchase a home, typically you get an inspection done through an inspector, but when you're doing these down payment assistance programs, sometimes they require a different form of inspection that has a higher standard. So you want to make sure there's timing for that. And you want to make sure you complete the right home buyer program. And so Grant can help you identify which home buyer program you need to complete. That way it covers the local DPA and the Hometown Heroes. Work with Grant at the very beginning to get your verification of employment done. So that means we're verifying that you work at a Florida brick and mortar full time, and we'll need that from your HR department and or your employer. And then if you don't get the funds this time around, don't get discouraged, because sometimes people's loans fall through. And so there will come a point in the process where they will say, okay, we have this many funds left over, and they'll reopen it back up. And you may be able to get funding there at that point. So again, I just want to thank Grant for taking time out of his day to share this wealth of knowledge. He is a well-versed professional, and I'm so glad to have him as a part of one of the mortgage professionals that I can reach out to. I want Grant to share his contact information so that way you all can reach out to him if you have further questions or concerns.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the kind words, and make sure to reach out to Sierra for all your real estate needs. Her job is to find you the perfect home, negotiate, with keeping your best interests in mind and getting you to the closing table successfully, along with me being there to give you a thank you note and maybe some closing presents if everything goes as smoothly as possible. Yep. Now, in
What's your
terms
contact?
of,
Your phone
yeah,
number, email? Okay.
definitely. Yeah, I wanted to include one thing before I
Okay.
give my contact information out. Keep in mind the funds for Hometown Heroes are limited. They are capped at $50 million. Of course, those funds will go quick because people have been waiting for this program for over a year to come back into existence. So make sure to make your reservations as soon as possible. And prior to doing that, make sure to talk to me to make sure you're completely qualified and that we make sure that everything checks out and that you're going to be eligible for the down payment assistance. Now, as we mentioned before, there are tons of down payment assistance programs. So if the funds end up running out for Hometown Heroes, do not be discouraged. I can give you 5 more down payment assistance programs that are just as good, if not better, and we can use those funds to help you get into a home with little to no money down. And I would like to end this presentation off with giving my contact information. My name is Grant Lee. I'm a senior loan officer with CMG Home Loans. You can reach me at my cell phone number at 813-618-9095. I work weekdays, weeknights, and weekends. Real estate is 24/7, and so am I. And being a millennial, I always have my phone or computer with me anywhere that I go. And in case you want to reach me over email, my email address is grantl@cmghomeloans.com. That is CMG as Christopher Michael George. That's our founder. And once again, that's grantl@cmghomeloans.com.
Perfect. I'm Ceera Horton, broker associate with Real Broker LLC, 813-440-2868. Ceera Horton at ceerahorton.com is my email address. Feel free to reach out to either of us. Like Grant said, 24/7. We'll get back to you as soon as possible because we want to make your dream of home ownership come true. Thanks for your time. Bye.